I had the weirdest month in September. Not in general, just in reading. Hi, I'm Colleen. This is my September wrap up. This channel's about books and writing. Sometimes you have a month that just won't flow. And that's what September was for me this month, last month. It wouldn't flow. I tried so many times to make it flow, and it wouldn't flow. So let's just start talking about the books. I'm gonna do these in order. I'm not breaking these up by genre because first of all, I only completed 5 books, which is really low for me, and none of them are very long. Sometimes if I'm gonna read like 3 500-page books, then maybe I only read 5 books, or maybe even 6 sometimes, but I read 5 normal length. I read 4 normal length books and 1 short book in this weird month. But we're gonna go on a journey. You're gonna see why I kept getting knocked down over and over and over and over again by my reading in September. I started with a great book. I started this book in August. It was one of my Labor Day weekend books. Labor Day weekend was really weird this year, for me at least, because I like to get a ton of reading done that weekend. It usually falls entirely in September. This year, only Monday was September, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday were in August. So I read like 2.5 books that weekend, but most of them counted towards August, and just one that I finished on Monday counted towards September. But it was Protect by Paisley Hope. I got this from the Well-Read Damsel when I went up there in August. I really enjoyed this book. It is about Rowan and Violet, and they are both in their, I want to say like late 20s, early 30s right now. Violet is divorced and she has a child from her marriage, and she's moved back home to the town she lived in. Rowan is a hotshot firefighter. Violet's brother, who was Rowan's best friend, died in a fire a while ago. I don't remember exactly how many years ago it was in the book, but it's been a while. And Violet really hasn't come home since the funeral. Rowan and Violet also dated in high school, and something terrible happened, and you don't know what. Right at the beginning of the book, Rowan gets in a bad fire accident, and Violet's a nurse and she's taking care of him. So the book is told both in present day chapters and in flashbacks to when they were in high school, when they were dating and what happened. And I have to say, this was just like exactly what I wanted out of this book. I tend to read mostly historical and paranormal romance because I don't really like rom-coms, but I like this type of contemporary romance where it's not funny. There's hard stuff going on. It's not overly angsty, but it's just like more like normal stuff. There's no hijinks. Violet's a nurse. She has a kid. She has a annoying relationship with her ex. Her parents are supporting her. She misses her brother a lot. And then Rowan is healing from a bad injury. He's a firefighter. He wants to get back out there. He wants to help his crew. He's still in love with this girl whose heart he broke in high school, and he has to figure out how to get her back. And it was just like a really great read. It's the second book in a series. I didn't get the first one because this series, which is all written by different authors, which is different, kind of like a different vibe. At the beginning, they have a list of content warnings. And in the first book, there was a content warning that I was like, I actually don't want to read that. So I grabbed this one. You can totally read them out of order. I might go back and read the first one because I like this one so much, or I might just go to the third one. I haven't decided yet. But next time I'm at Well-Read Damsel, I'll definitely, she had a lot of those on the shelf, so I'll definitely take a peek. Okay, so I started the month off great. And I had so many unread book of the month books. Let's see if I can figure out how many I had. 1, 2, 3. I had 4 unread book of the month books. So I was like, I need to get some book of the months read. I didn't buy any new book of the month in September, but I had still purchased some over the summer that I hadn't gotten to. And I'm like, I'm going to read these books. So first I picked up Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham, thinking it would be like an easy breezy thriller. It's only 320 pages. I was like, we're going to keep it snippy snappy. I read Protect super fast. I'm going to read this super fast. I'm going to read more stuff super fast. I'm just going to be flying through books this month. Here's where I kind of slammed to the brakes. So our main character in this is named Claire, and 20 some years ago, her sister disappeared. And her family has fallen apart. Like, she doesn't really talk to her parents. She lives in, I think she lives in New York. I'm trying to remember. She lives not in North Carolina where this takes place, or South Carolina. We're in one of the Carolinas, South Carolina. So she doesn't live near South Carolina, and her mom has like a fall, and so her dad calls. Her parents are not together anymore, and it's like, can you go check on your mom? So she goes down to check her mom and on her mom, and then she lies to work and says she needs to stay. Like I shouldn't say she lies to work. She has quit her job and she lies to like her work friends and is like, I have to stay and take care of my mom. What she actually does is checks in with her mom and then goes to the vineyard where her sister was working before she disappeared, and then sort of finagles a summer job there. And the people who all work there are bizarre. And she finds a diary and she thinks that maybe this diary is going to help her figure out what happened to her sister. I read another one of her books, and it was Flicker in the Dark, I think. Yeah, which I liked, but I am having a hard time remembering like the details of. Where this book suffered for me is it never became unputdownable. Like, I always think a thriller's a really good thriller if you're on page 150 and it's like, oh no, I have to finish this book today. Which I think a lot of thrillers do that. Like, you hit a point where you're like, oh, I want to finish this right now. I was literally like, I think like I had 30 pages left and I was kind of like feeling blasé about picking it up. I also think that it was one of those thrillers where I was so angry at the main character for the stupid decisions she made to not get herself to safety. So there was also like this whole section with this diary that was taking place in the past, and I found I really didn't care about that plot line. I was more interested in the present. I wanted to know what happened to her sister, and I was less concerned with what had happened in the past. I think I rated this on Goodreads like a 3.5, and on Book of the Month as like an I liked it, because you can do I loved it, I liked it, I didn't like it. And I didn't dislike the book. Like, it didn't take me 3 months to finish, which is what happens with the books that I don't like. But it just didn't grab me like I wanted it to for a thriller. Okay, so now we're feeling a little book slumpy, and we're trying to decide what we're going to read next. And usually when I'm book slumpy, I read a thriller. And I just read a thriller. So I was like, oh no, well, I have another thriller. I'll read another thriller. And that thriller was Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. So I talked about this a lot in videos, that I felt like as the years go on, my yearly Book of the Month wrap up of like everything I bought in the year have gotten less like over the moon excited and gushing, because I've mostly purchased all the backlists that I find interesting. So like Circe, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, The Broken Girls, like I've gotten those books now. They don't exist in backlist anymore, these books that like still hold the test of time. But this was a thriller that I know a lot of people loved when it came out, and it became a miniseries, I think, on Apple TV. And I like hallucinated that Eric Bana and the woman from Friday Night Lights, Connie Britton, were the main characters in this, in the adaptation. And then I found it, and it's not. It's Jennifer Garner and Jamie from Game of Thrones. But then I realized I think there was a different like thriller miniseries that came out with Eric Bana and Connie Britton at the same time, and that's why I sort of mix those up in my brain. Anyways, this is about Hannah. And Hannah's having a regular day, and then she gets a delivery of a duffel bag from a random high school student that's like, your husband paid me to drop this off. And it's full of money, and there's a note in it that says, protect her. And Hannah has a stepdaughter who's in high school named Bailey, and Hannah's like trying to figure out what on earth she needs to protect Bailey from. Slowly you figure out that her husband's name's Owen, that he's been working for this company, and it's like turned out to be like a Ponzi scheme or something like that. I can't remember exactly. And Hannah and Bailey are trying to figure out where Owen is and why he's in hiding, etc. So this is a book that I was into. I was into like the first 40-ish%. And it wasn't like unputdownable, but I will say this book has very big print and a lot of like blank pages. So when you're reading this, it's a fast read because there just isn't that much in it. Like, it's 303 pages, but if it had like a more normal typeface and like less blank pages, I do think this would be a much shorter book. I mean, there's a blank page. We just have so many blank pages. I did not like the twist. And that kind of will kill a thriller for you, because if you don't like the twist, you're probably not going to like the thriller. And I understand why people would like the twist, but I didn't really like the twist. So again, I think I had this as an I liked it on Book of the Month. I think I gave it 3.5 stars on Goodreads. So not like a bad read, just like I'm still
okay, now at this point, I'm feeling really book slumpy. So I read a great romance, and then I've read 2 thrillers that were very middle of the road. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to read another thriller. And I think at this point, I maybe read like a chapter or 2 of another romance novel, and it just wasn't grabbing me. And I was like, okay, we're going to bring out the big guns. We're going to read an Alice Hoffman. It's my last Alice Hoffman hard copy that I had on my shelf that I hadn't read. There's one other one I have, but I like kind of permanently DNF'd because of a sexual assault scene at the very beginning of the book. We're just gonna look at Alice Hoffman's bibliography real quick, and I'm gonna grab my computer for that. We're only looking at her adult stuff because she's also written some young adult novels in middle grade and children's books and short stories and all that jazz. But she's written, it's gonna take me forever to count, 1, 2, 3. She's written 32 adult books, okay? From 1977 to 2024, her last book came out. Now, this was her 12th book. Of the books that came before this book, Here on Earth, I've only read one, and it was Practical Magic. And this is the book she wrote after Practical Magic. So Practical Magic was her 11th book. The books I read of hers that I really love. So Blackbird House was her 17th book. The Ice Queen was her 18th book. Skylight Confessions was her 19th book. Then I don't read 20 or 21. The Red Garden is her 22nd book. The Dove Keepers is her 23rd book. And then I didn't read a bunch. And then Invisible Hour I absolutely loved, which is her second to last book. Now, I'm learning that I really like some of Alice Hoffman's books, and then the others just don't jive with me. Here's what this book is about also. This was just like really bad timing. This is more about why this was such a weird month. This is a Wuthering Heights retelling. I had no idea. I just read The Favorites at the end of August. I literally finished The Favorites on the last day of August during Labor Day weekend, which is a Wuthering Heights retelling. I don't really like Wuthering Heights, okay? So I'm reading this book, and I'm on page 50, and I'm like, oh my God, is this a Wuthering Heights retelling? And I Google it, and it is. And I can't believe it, because it doesn't say that on the back, or I missed it. Let's see. No, there is no part of this that says it's about Wuthering Heights. It does say that this is like about like a toxic love story. There's more than one toxic love story than Wuthering Heights. Basically, it's the story of Wuthering Heights set in New England. Now, I will say I liked this more than either Forget Me Not or The Last Thing He Told Me, because there were portions of it where her writing is just very beautiful, and she can sort of like, even if it's a retelling of a story I don't like, she can sort of grab me in on certain paragraphs where I'm like, oh yeah, there's Alice Hoffman. There's that writing style I absolutely adore. But I had such a hard time getting over the fact that it was a Wuthering Heights retelling. If I had read this in a year and I hadn't just read The Favorites, I probably would have liked it more. I think I gave it 3.75 stars on Goodreads and said this is unfair because I hold Alice Hoffman to a higher standard. Because if this was just some random person, like if this had been The Favorites, I probably would have really liked it, if that makes sense. I did like, and this is a little spoilery, if you're ever going to read this book or if you haven't read Wuthering Heights, but she made Hollis, who was Heathcliff, like an abusive, toxic man, which I liked. He was not a romance hero. He was a bad guy. And like March, who's Catherine or Kathy, whatever her name is, she was like not terribly evil, but she was also like made a lot of really questionable choices. And I liked how she changed the ending. Other than that, I couldn't believe I read another Wuthering Heights retelling. Okay, so now I'm basically just sitting in the weirdness of this month. Like I have read 3 books in a row I didn't love that I thought were going to be like fast. It's getting towards the end of the month. I haven't even started reading the 2 books I told myself I was going to read no matter what during my September TBR. And so of course I go to the mall to buy a jacket, and I drove to like a really far away mall because I wanted to go to an LL Bean because my winter coat's from LL Bean and I've had it for 10 years and it's probably gonna last me 10 more. And I need like a fall coat, and I was like, I'm gonna get an LL Bean coat because it's gonna last me 20 years. But then when I got there, the coat I thought I wanted, I didn't like, and whatever. I'd driven really far though. And so there was a Barnes and Noble at this mall, and I was like, I'm just gonna go walk around. I'm not gonna buy a lot of books, I'm gonna walk around. And I told myself, if I bought a book, I was going to start it as soon as I got home, and it was going to be the book I read next. And so I did do it. And I went crazy, and I bought a horror novel. If you've been following this channel for any length of time, you know the one genre I don't read is horror. I haven't seen this book constantly at my library also. Like, I could have checked it out from the library 1,000 times, but I just wanted to buy a book that day, and I wanted to buy something short because I'm just floundering at this point. So what do I buy? I buy Ecstasy by Ivy Pachoda? I'm not sure how you say her last name. This book was weird, but it wasn't that scary. So the premise is you have Lena, and Lena's recently widowed. She was much younger than her husband. She used to be like a famous ballerina, and her husband was a very wealthy man, and he kind of like collected her. He kind of like married her and then killed her spirit and turned her into something else. So he's recently died, and her son, she has one child, is taking over the family business. And there's this hotel in Greece where her father died on the beach, her husband, his father, died on the beach in front of the hotel that they've been building. And her son invites her best friend, and her son's wife to come to this grand opening before the hotel's actually open. When they get there, there's this encampment of women like partying on the beach, but they're not like all young. They're like kind of like what you would imagine like a travelers type group. And the son's losing his mind, and the mom, Lena, she's like really interested in it. Okay, so this is a horror. It does have Greek mythology woven in it that was kind of cool. The horror aspects of it, I would say, are mostly body horror. Like some gross stuff happens, and there's like gross imagery. I didn't really like this book that much, but I feel odd reviewing it as such because I had never read a horror novel before, unless you're going to count like Frankenstein, which I don't really think you count Frankenstein. So it was a nice experiment to read it. I wasn't that scared. I thought I was going to be terrified the whole time I read this book. I was more like disgusted reading parts of it, which was the point. So again, I think I gave this book like 3.5 stars. Like, the writing was interesting. The storyline was interesting. It just wasn't a book for me. Let's move on. That's the last book I finished. Now, I did read a bit more though. In my September TBR video, I said the 2 books, no matter what I was going to read this month, were these 2. Medieval Lives, 8 Charismatic Men and Women of the Middle Ages by Norman F. Cantor, and The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. Let's start with this one. I read more of this. Oh my God, I took the bookmark out. Oh no, there it is. So I'm on page 24. I think when I started, I was on page like 12. So I read like 12 pages. And here's the thing, I really don't like this book at all. I tried to read it like 4 times now. I am not going to unhaul it though, because I recently posted a video about my like curriculum I'm working through right now that I've created for myself. I'll put a link in the description. And one of the things I'm doing on this curriculum is studying medieval history. So I'm going to put this with my curriculum books, and that's where it's going to live, which is separate from my TBR. I'm not going to read this book in its entirety, but there are 2 chapters in here I think I do want to read. The chapter on Eleanor of Aquitaine and the chapter on Hildegard of, I'm forgetting what she's of. Hildegard, where are you of? Bingen. So I think that while I'm studying medieval history over the next year, I will read those 2 chapters and see what I get out of them. And maybe there'll be another person who is covered in this biography collection that I will eventually be interested in after I do other research that I'll want to read. But I'm not going to make myself read this book in entirety because I just am not enjoying the writing style at all. And then next, The Bone Witch. I'm on page 74 of this. I am going to finish this book this month, but I definitely am not being grabbed by it because it's young adult. And that is a problem that I do have as a reader, is I think partially because I read so much young adult for so many years that now a young adult voice to me just feels like not what I want. So I think what I'm probably going to do is do the whole like reading more than one book at a time with this book, and probably keep it like down here. So when I feel like reading downstairs, I read it, but it's not like the book on my bedside table. This one follows T, and she is a bone witch, and it's also called Being an Asha. And they're this type of magic that most people are very afraid of because she can raise the dead and I think maybe heal people as well. The book begins with her accidentally raising her brother who was recently deceased, who now follows her around. She's with a teacher now. So we're just kind of like figuring out her place in the world. I know this is a series and I think it is a trilogy, and I can tell already that I'm not going to read this entire series, but I do think I will finish this book, and I hope I will finish it in October, but you never know. So that is everything I read in September, which is pretty bizarre. And if you watched my October TBR, I talked a little bit about how I'm giving myself pretty much leeway to read whatever I want in October, because in September I was really like, I want to get some book of the month read, and I need to start I need to read the Bone Witch and the medieval biography, and I should really read Here on Earth because I had put these books on my TBR, and I don't want to feel that boxed in again next month. I really like, if I want to read beach reads all month and nothing witchy and nothing spooky, then I'm going to do that. Now, the most important part of this video, I think, is asking, did you read anything great in September? Because I do feel a little odd that I basically gave you 4 reviews of 3-star books and then 1 review of a 5-star book. It just doesn't feel like my normal sort of wrap up or book reviews. So if you read something that just took your breath away, please put it in the comments so viewers can look down at some actually great book reviews. And if you made it this far, but you don't want to tell me what you read in September, or maybe you read nothing, maybe you had a true book slump, I would love a sunflower emoji, because September's over and I always think of September as sunflowers and then October as pumpkins. So I would love a sunflower emoji in those comments. And as always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.